So I've been trying to break my bench press plateau by doing the Smolov Jr. bench press cycle these last 2.5 weeks, really. And I did mention in the initial video talking about how the Smolov program was going to be for the next 3 weeks, that I would do a halfway point check-in. Now, admittedly, it's a little bit past the halfway point. I'm actually in the 3rd week of the Smolov Jr. cycle, which is a 3-week cycle, but I figured better late than never. So let's talk about what I have found out about the Smolov Jr. now that I've tried it again after many years, and kind of go over some of the things that I've noticed and pointers that might help you out if you want to try it out as well. So first and foremost, one of the things that I was already expecting, but I kind of had forgotten how tough it can be, is the volume. This is a extremely high volume program. Obviously, the original Smolov is way longer than the Smolov Jr., but 3 weeks of benching 3 times a day, right, with a high set and rep scheme is honestly, first, can get very taxing on the nervous system. And that's something that I actually started to feel this week, the 3rd week, right? The fatigue kicked in during the weekend, and I thought I was getting sick, honestly, which I might have. I mean, I did have sort of a stomach thing going on, but my muscles in general, my tendons and my ligaments were in pain. And that is something that I truly had forgotten about when I did the Smolov Jr. years ago, specifically for my deadlift, just how taxing it is. So that's one of the first things I have to just mention, right? That the Smolov Jr. program is extremely intense. There's a whole lot of volume, even though you're not really breaking into the 90% of your max. The volume that you do from 65 to like 75, maybe even 80% of your max is a lot of weight and also just volume in general. So that's something you have to come to terms with, that your nervous system will be taxed, and it will be taxed kind of high depending on, first of all, your physical frame and how your leverages are, but also just by the cycle itself. Taxing of the muscle, fatigue of the tendons and joints, and just overall sort of you need to have a high pain tolerance, is what I'm trying to say. So that's the first thing that I would say look out for, and just basically admit to yourself and just take it if you're going to do the Smolov Jr., right? That's the first thing. Now, the second thing that I have noticed, and this is a pro as opposed to the previous one, which is more of a con, is that I have kind of found out or recalibrated my bench press form, right? I was having some issues with my lockouts in particular, and just not feeling that tightness and rigidity needed in the bench press, especially on the lockout. Usually I would feel kind of loosey-goosey on my lockouts previously. And even though I was able to bench 335 being my previous max, which is nothing, to really, feel like you're not really good at, it was definitely something that I would always have in the back of my mind. My lockout always felt loose. And with doing so many reps and so many sets of bench press 3 times a week, I started to feel my muscles more and start to also understand how to keep my rigidity throughout the lift, and especially the lockout, which for me has been my weak point. And that is engaging my lats more, engaging my rear delts more, and just paying attention to that foundation that I would say a lot of people kind of don't realize how important your back muscles are, especially your upper back muscles in the bench press. So that's something that obviously I already knew, like intellectually. I have read about it. I have seen a lot of, prolific powerlifters talk about, but it's something that my body was just not really used to. And I think doing so many reps and sets developed, or it's helping that development of the upper back being maybe not a prime mover in the actual lift, but a foundation that sets you up for having your prime movers be as strong as they can be from a leverage perspective. So that, I would say, is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned with using the Smolov Jr. cycle. Now, the third one that I would say is another very important thing that I have learned is the idea of putting in a lot of work. That has been something that I have always sort of had as a foundation or a philosophy in my lifting since really I started taking powerlifting seriously. Just putting in a lot of work, right? And being okay with grinding that work. But I kind of let off the gas a couple of years ago. I would say about 2 years ago, once I hit kind of the peak of my heaviest lifts at that time. I let off the gas from really grinding out a lot of the workload that I was doing previously. But this reminded me, you have to be okay and willing and open to grinding and doing a lot of work, right? The idea comes again of you have to bench more to bench more. Those words that Dan Green said a long time ago that I really took to heart. This Smolov Jr. cycle reminded me of that and the importance of doing more to do more, right? Obviously, it has to be programmed correctly and it has to be done in a way that obviously you don't get hurt. But it is something you have to not only be okay with, but just accept that that's going to be what it takes to break through plateaus. Now, it is important to say, and I said it on my previous video, that the Smolov Jr. cycle is a short cycle. It's 3 weeks, right? 3 times a week. And the reps and sets are based on the percentage from your 1 rep max. If you want to learn more about that, watch my previous video because I go into detail about that. And with that being said, another thing that I noticed in something that I have heard, again, prolific lifters talk about is the importance of the accessories, right? And not only the importance of the accessories, but also being conscientious about the heavy weight that you use with your accessories and assistance exercises, right? Being that the Smolov Jr. is a very intense, very volume heavy cycle, the accessories and assistance exercises don't have to be as heavy poundage wise like the bench press because you're already doing a lot of weight for a lot of reps and sets. What I have focused on instead is getting a lot of quality rep work, obviously not extremely light, medium to touching heavy with my accessories and assistance to one, keep that hypertrophy stable so I can grow muscles, but also keep the joints moving and really not have them lock on you. That's one other thing that is, it can happen when you do these sort of cycles that with all the movement and all the fatigue, you can start to lock up, and it's important not to do so. So I think the assistance and accessory exercises, aside from keeping that hypertrophy, it's also important to just keep your muscles and your tendons and ligaments and joints from locking up. So that's another important aspect that I think is pretty important when doing, a volume heavy sort of cycle like this. So what is the next step? So what do we do now? I mean, I'm gonna finish up this Smolov Jr. literally tomorrow or Friday. That's when I'm gonna be finishing up the cycle. And what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to take next week, not completely off, but it's going to definitely be a deload week, just so I can have, that fatigue recovery as much as I can. And 2 weeks from now, or yeah, I guess 2 weeks from now, I'll be doing a max attempt. I'm going to test it out and see if I can hit. My goal is 345. That's what I want to hit on the bench press. But a 350 would actually be pretty sick as well. I haven't done anything above 350 in, wow, since 2019. So that would be pretty sick too if I can get to that level. But at 345, honestly, would be amazing. That would be a 10-pound increase from the 335 that I previously have done. So this is kind of the last step in that cycle. And what happens after testing the max? After the max, I think I'm going to do the Texas bench cycle, which is kind of the opposite in a way of the Smolov Jr. It's not so volume heavy. It's more focused on, lower reps, lower sets, but at higher kind of percentage of the 1 rep max. And I think that is something I'm going to transition into. Do that for 3 or 4 weeks, take a deload week or 2 off, and then potentially try the Smolov again, depending on how my body recovers. But for now, that's pretty much the update on this particular cycle. It's been a ride, honestly. It's been tough. I think that's important to say. I'm not going to cap and say, oh, it's easy and whatever. Yeah, the weights are not weights that I've never done before. In fact, a lot of those weights, yesterday I did 8 sets of 4 with 270 on the bar, which is not that bad for me. I can do 270 no issue, but 8 sets of 4, like, that's a lot of volume, right? And that's where the toughness comes in, and that's where the idea of grinding is very important. So that's definitely a reminder that I needed, right? Just to be okay with grinding, being okay with doing a lot of work, and it's starting to bleed into other things. I'm doing cardio more. I've been doing cardio for several months now, but I'm doing a bit more intense cardio, not necessarily running, but doing incline cardio on the treadmill with a good pace. And I've been doing that 30 minutes every day. So it's teaching me to be okay with that grind again. And that's good. That's a lesson I needed to revisit. But yeah, that's the current update. Definitely check out my shorts. That's where I post basically the actual training footage. But here is the training footage for yesterday. I'm going to now rest and prepare for the last leg of this Smolov Jr. cycle. Do I recommend it? Let me finish it first and then do my max, and then I'll have a full comprehensive sort of point of view, and I will be able to tell you for sure if you should try it or not. But then again, you could do whatever the fuck you want to. So if you want to do it, go for it, and then let us know what happens. Yeah, take it easy.
Wake up!